Daughter, wake up, what's wrong? Tingy shook up his unconscious daughter and shouted for help. When Anran arrived at the hospital, she thought Yaxen was dead. But when she heard that she had only fainted, she felt bored. When Tingy saw Anran and Jinrong, the anger in his heart erupted. You, what are you doing here? My daughter just fainted, so it's not as serious as you had hoped. You must be very disappointed, right? Jinrong stood in front of his wife, protecting her calmly. You can scold me, but you can't scold her. You know very well what happened. You don't have the right to blame my wife. Anran looked at the man protecting her and felt a sense of security. Tingy lowered his fist. He knew that it was because of him today, but he refused to admit it. Anran, just you wait. If anything happens to my daughter, I won't forgive you. All right, I'll wait. It would be best if something happens so that I can see her passing on to the afterlife with my own eyes. Didn't she step on my ashes? It's my duty to reciprocate. Anran smiled and sat on the chair beside the room. Soon Yaxen regained consciousness. She opened up her eyes and saw her enemy. She gritted her teeth, her eyes bloodshot, and asked, Why? Why didn't you die? Why did you come back alive? Why are you still pestering me? When Anran heard this, she wasn't too angry. Those words were within her expectations. I'm not pestering you. You're the one pestering me. In fact, I didn't want to treat you like this, but you have committed too many sins to even the heavens can't bear to watch. In fact, this child doesn't belong to you. You know the exact reason. Actually, you should be thanking me. After all, we can't really tell who the father is of this child, right? Anran smiled. Yaxen was suddenly taken aback. She seemed to have forgotten about old Wang. What nonsense are you saying? This child is Tan Shilin's. Who else could it be? Tingy didn't know the truth, but he had always believed in his daughter. She knows if there's someone else. Don't blame me for everything. I didn't push this woman today, and I didn't lie to you. It has nothing to do with me. Anran smiled even more arrogantly. She suddenly remembered that in her past life, Yaxen had smiled in the same way as her. Nonsense, Dad, there is no such thing. You have to believe me. Even though Yaxen knew what happened, she couldn't admit it. It's up to you whether you believe it or not, but what I want to say is that from now on, you better not appear in front of me. You should treat this incident as a lesson from the heavens. Anran looked at her disdainfully. Yaxen was furious. How did I provoke you? Why must you be so ruthless to me? Yaxen pretended not to understand and continued to cry. You don't understand? Do you need me to remind you? Let me remind you again. I've said it before. You killed me before, both mentally and physically. There isn't anything more hateful than being deceived by someone you trust until your family is ruined. This is why I want to send your entire family to prison. But Uncle is out now. I don't know if I will have the chance to send him in personally again. Anran leaned down and whispered in her ear, Actually, I am reincarnated. In my past life, you ruined my family. This time, I'm here for revenge. Yaxen's eyes widened. She didn't know if Anran was telling the truth. What did you say? You're lying. Yaxen felt that Anran could make up such a strange story. It's up to you whether or not you believe it. This is the reason why I treat you like this. By the way, let me tell you, your day of retribution will be coming soon. Get out, you're not welcomed here. My daughter is already in such a state because of you, and you still want to harm her? When are you going to stop? Tingy pointed at Anran, wishing he could rip her apart. Uncle, that's a good question. I think it'll end when all of you are in jail and she falls off a cliff. Don't worry, the glorious moment of you and your daughter will come soon. Anran laughed and walked out. The moment she turned around, Tingy grabbed her hair, looked at her fiercely. You! The moment he finished speaking, Jinrong ripped his hand away and kicked him. Tingy felt a sharp pain in his chest as he fell onto this table, smashing everything. She isn't a woman you can touch. You better behave yourself. Yaxen, tell Tan Shilin that if he wants revenge, he can come find me. There's no need to vent all your anger on my wife. Jinrong helped Anran and asked her, How are you? Are you all right? Anran shook her head and the two of them walked out openly. Dad, are you all right? Yaxen laid on the bed, unable to move. She could only watch as her father struggled on the floor. I'm alright. What did she say to you just now? Look at you. Tingyin waved his hand, enduring the pain in his chest, and stood up. She said she reincarnated. Can you believe that? Yaxin was skeptical. After all, no one had experienced it themselves. Tingyi thought that she was talking nonsense. Is she crazy? They don't believe such nonsense. Take care of your health and you might get pregnant again. Outside the hospital, Anran was in a good mood. Every time Yaxin was in dire straits, she would feel very good. Aren't you afraid that she'll spread the news? Besides you, who else would believe me? Such a strange ghost story will probably be regarded as being due to mental illness if word spreads, right? Jinrong thought about it and agreed. Since ancient times, many people said that they have seen aliens and were from the past and were diagnosed with some serious mental illnesses. Presumably, no one would believe her. Are you really going to kill her like she did to you in your past life? Jinrong looked at her seriously. Of course, but I'm not as heartless as her. She'll probably make a move soon. That's when I'll wipe them all out. I like it this way. Chapter 527, Qin Taiyan's visit. Jinrong returned to the company after going to the hospital. This is the first time he appeared in the company after leaving for so long, and many people were shocked. When Moson heard that Jinrong had returned to the company, he hurried over. When he saw Jinrong, tears welled up in his eyes, and he pounced on him. Young master, you're finally back. He hugged Jinrong tightly, tears falling onto his suit. Jinrong patted his shoulder, his voice gentle. Your tears are making my suit wet. Moson wiped his tears in amusement. He was too agitated. He originally thought that Jinrong was dead, but later on he realized that something was strange. He had a belief that Jinrong wasn't dead at all and that everything was fake. Young master, I really don't know what I would do if you didn't come back soon. The entire company is counting on you. Moson started to cry like a child who did something wrong. Aren't I back? Gather all the shareholders for a meeting. Moson wiped his tears and continued speaking. Young master, all the shareholders' shares have been transferred and bought. There are no more shareholders in the board of directors. He handed over the shareholder agreements. Jinrong picked up the shareholder agreements and smiled. It doesn't matter, call them back. This was signed under forced circumstances, so it probably won't count. The company's funds have been returned, so call them back and we'll discuss the future. This time, Moson felt that Jinrong seemed much gentler and wasn't as strict as before. He looked at his young master. He knew how to smile. This was one of the few times he saw it from Jinrong. Soon the shareholders were gathered in the conference room, waiting for Jinrong to speak with solemn expressions. Everyone has been gone for so long and Shengli has mistreated you. I'm sorry, but now that the company has become like this, I have an undeniable responsibility. The company's funds have been returned. Previously, Anran and I transferred the fund, so that was why the company had plummeted. But it was all for the sake of protecting the company. You don't have to worry now that things have stabilized. Jinrong spoke. The conference room was deadly silent. Zhao Jun broke the silence first and stood up a little embarrassed. Bossman, we are no longer shareholders and all the shares have been transferred to Shengli. We didn't have a choice. Please don't blame us. We were afraid of death. We really didn't have a choice because he was pointing a gun at our heads. Zhao Jun was an old shareholder. Previously, he had promised firmly that he would live and die with the Mo Corporation, but in reality he had been slapped in the face with the truth, so he felt a little guilty. This is the second thing I wanted to say. Everyone here has experienced great storms and have close friends at the Mo family. You were forced, so I don't blame you. The contract is invalid and won't have any legal benefits. Jinrong's words relieved everyone. In the conference room, everyone smiled brightly. Zhao Jun spoke again. Thank you, Boss Mo. It is our blessing to have such a great president in the Mo Corporation. In the past few days you weren't around. The Mo Corporation's market was almost snatched away. We must hurry to recover our original vitality. Therefore, the matter will have to rely on the joint efforts of the shareholders. Our cosmetics, clothes, construction materials, properties, and various other venues will have to be divided so that we can return to our former positions by the end of the year, Jinrong said. Everyone present wasn't used to Jinrong's smile. Jinrong, you have smiled a lot since you've come back. I can tell that you're much happier than before, Zhao Jun said. Jinrong touched his face in disbelief. Really? Was I that serious in the past? He smiled and dismissed the meeting. Young master, I have followed your instructions and won't pursue the Qin family's responsibility, but I don't think Qin Taiyan will appreciate it. He is a headstrong person. The moment Mo-san finished speaking, Qin Taiyan appeared. Speak of the devil, Boss Qin. Why don't we talk in the office? Jinrong said. In the office, Mo-san gave Qin Taiyan a cup of tea and left. Boss Mo, I'm not here to thank you today. I know that you don't want to fight the lawsuit and have returned all the money to me. But don't think that because of this I will just give up the fight and be grateful to you. Qin Taiyan sat on the sofa, looking like Qin Hao. I don't need your gratitude. I admit that I was wrong previously. I made your sister misunderstand my feelings for her, which led to this. I owe you and old Master Qin, so I think that this can be considered a compensation. Jinrong sat opposite of him, and the two of them started to talk. Compensate? My dad's life, and the fact that my sister was ruined by your uncle? Tell me, how are you going to compensate with this little money? There wasn't a trace of excitement in Qin Taiyan's voice, but it was pleasant. Then why are you here today? What can I do to eliminate your hatred for me? My hatred for you will never stop, but I don't want to be like my father. I want to compete with you fairly, so I don't want you to fall into the hands of others. Tan Shilin came to cooperate with me today, hoping to defeat you with my help. I didn't agree. I don't want to fall from one abyss to another, so I'm here to remind you that Sheng Li is hiding in the Tan family. I think Tan Shilin is being threatened. Qin Taiyan analyzed the situation. He's in the Tan family? It seems that some people are overestimating themselves again. Jinrong had failed once, and he definitely wouldn't fail again. What do you want to do? Qin Taiyan was very curious about how he would take revenge on his uncle. Let's see and wait. Thank you for telling me this today. If you want to participate, I will bring you along. You're thinking too much. I'm not here to help you. I just don't want you to die in someone else's hands. Qin Taiyan stood up and left. After he left, Mo-san spoke. Young master, do you have any thoughts? What he wants most now is my life, Jinrong said. Young master, what are you going to do? You can't be silly again. You know how dangerous this is. How am I going to explain to old Mrs. Mo if you're in danger again? Mo-san was afraid Jinrong's life would be in danger. Chapter 528 Bait. I won't fall into his trap again. Jinrong suddenly thought of someone. Perhaps she was Sheng Li's lifeline. Mo-san, go abroad to this address and bring this person back. Jinrong took out a piece of paper with a foreign address written on it. Where is this? Mo-san saw the address was probably in a wealthy district. Don't ask so many questions. Bring her back safely. Tell her that her father sent someone to pick her up. Don't let Sheng Li know. Is she his daughter? Mo-san had an idea, and a trace of surprise flashed in his eyes. He had never heard of Sheng Li having a daughter. You should know why I'm taking this risk, right? I'm going to inspect various places in 3 days. Spread the news. Young masters, does young madam know that you want to use yourself as bait? Mo-san asked. Don't tell her about this first. I'm afraid she'll be worried. Jinrong thought about how he would always protected her in the past life, and how he still would do so in this life. Yes, young master. Mo-san had mixed feelings, not knowing if he should let Jinrong go over. After Anran's mental state stabilized, she was sent back to the Lan family's villa. Li Yuro didn't go to the hospital anymore and stayed by her daughter's side, afraid that something would happen to her. Mom, you don't have to protect me. I'm all right. Anran showed her mother how good her health was. Silly child, how many times have you experienced something like this? You didn't tell us every time, making us worried. We told you so many times, but you wouldn't listen. Li Yuro blamed her daughter. Mom, wouldn't you be more worried if I told you? I'm all right. Don't worry, my life is tough. I'm a jinx. Anran smiled and said, Leo pointed to her forehead angrily. Silly child, don't talk about yourself like that. In the past, your grandma hired a foolish master. What jinx? Don't talk about yourself like that. Your grandma is in jail, and our lives will be better as long as we catch Shang Li. Anne nodded. She felt that this man was a little dangerous. After all, he was from a foreign gang, and they had to catch him as soon as possible. There was a sudden clang outside. Sis, you're back? Sis? Yanran carried a suitcase and ran into the house. Why are you back? Yanran was overjoyed to see her brother return. I saw the news. It's great that you're home. I haven't seen you in a long time. Yanran hugged Yanran tightly like a 3-year-old child. You're already so old, but you're still acting like a child. You guys can talk. I'll make your favorite dishes. Leo smiled and said. The siblings hugged for a long time. Sis, do you and Jinrong have any plans for the future? Recently, I've been suffering a lot in the entertainment circle because of Jinrong. Those big bosses are all snobbish. In the past, when I carried brother-in-law's name, they came to climb up the social ladder. But now they all want to push me far away since brother-in-law's company is in trouble. Yanran complained that everyone in the entertainment circle was selfish. Don't worry, everything will be on track with Jinrong, but from now on, there will be more potential dangers outside. Be careful when you go out to work. Yanran was a little worried. After all, Shang Li had always used her brother to threaten her. Sis, you're the best. Yanran touched Yanran's hair gently. She smiled foolishly. You silly boy, our medical school doesn't have any classes, but your art school have no classes too. Don't delay your studies because of your work. The school might expel you. Tell me, how long has it been since you went to class? Sis, it's all right. I just have to do my homework, right? He looked up and continued to rest in Yanran's arms with a smile. After a long time, Leo called the siblings to eat. Yanran went downstairs while Yanran was still working on her computer. She was searching the entire city for traces of Shang Li. She figured out several escape routes at the airport and let Fatty and the others search them one by one to see if they had any traces of Shang Li on them. Rong City Airport was built in the suburbs and was surrounded by mountains and trees. Shang Li probably wouldn't hide in the mountains. He had lived a pampered life all these years and had long forgotten his survival skills. The only reliable news was that he should be hiding in a house of someone he was familiar with. To Shang Li, there weren't many people he was familiar with in Rong City. Thinking about it narrowed the scope. She was just about to take out her phone when she received a call from Jinrong. Yanran, I received news that Shang Li is currently in the Tan family's house. Don't act rashly for the time being in case you alert the enemy. I will communicate with the police. Don't interfere in this matter anymore. This is between him and me. I hope I can resolve it myself. Jinrong didn't want her to be hurt at all. I know this better than you. It seems that Yaxin's incident was indeed a fuse. I'll leave Shang Li to you and I'll handle Yaxin. Yanran hung up. Her chance to avenge herself was here. She got Skinny to keep a close eye on Yaxin and Tingy, afraid that they would attack in a few days. Just then, Leo hurried over. Silly girl, come down and eat. I made your favorite braised pork ribs and braised fish. Yanran turned off her computer silently and said, That's not my favorite food anymore. I love everything Mom makes. You're the sweetest. Hurry down and eat. Your father is still waiting for me at the hospital. After the meal, Yanran received a message from Skinny. Boss, as you expected, they are indeed up to no good. I saw Tingy quietly meeting Old Wang today. I don't know what they were discussing, but they seemed very agitated. I'm afraid that it's not anything good. Skinny was still pretending to be a passerby as he watched them. Continue to keep an eye and report any news to me, Yanran smiled and said. It seemed that Old Wang was still useful. In the restaurant, Tingy sat opposite of Old Wang and looked at him angrily. Did you take what I said to heart? Old Wang was focused on eating the big bone in his hand, and he didn't take any words to heart. I know that you just want me to take the blame for you. What's in it for me? Old Wang put down the bone in hand, took a napkin, and cleaned his hand with it vigorously. I have money. I can give you money. In order to take revenge, Tingy could only deceive this old man. He still had a lot of hatred for Old Wang. After all, he was always exhorting him before. Chapter 529, Revenge. Tingy, stop lying to me. How do you even have money now? You're just trying to trick me into going to jail. Let me tell you, there's no way. Old Wang was very shrewd. Ever since he was enlightened by Ayn Rand last time, it was as if he had unlocked all his meritins. Don't you know that my daughter is with a rich second-generation heir? Let me tell you, I have plenty of money now. Tingy casually took out a bank card and placed it on the table. Previously, Tan Shilin had given him a bank card in order to placate him. He didn't know how much money was inside. There's 500,000 yuan on this bank card. If you help me with this, all of this will be yours. Don't worry, it's not a big deal. I just want you to teach that woman a lesson. Tingy casually said a number, wanting to fool Old Wang. Old Wang looked at the bank card and he was tempted. He wouldn't be able to earn 500,000 yuan in his life. He looked at Tingy. Tell me, what do you want to do? His hand was already on the bank card, waiting to accept it, but Tingy beat him to it and put the card in his bag. You only get the money after you complete the mission. I'll ask her out tomorrow and you can beat her up. This is sulfuric acid. Splash it on that woman's face. Let's see how arrogant she can be after that. Tingy placed a small bottle of sulfuric acid on the table. Old Wang looked at the bottle of sulfuric acid with some questions in his heart. Brother, what did that woman do to you? It seems like you have a lot of hatred for her. She caused the death of my grandson. Don't you think she deserves to die? Actually, I'm being merciful. Otherwise, she would have gone to see my grandson by now. Old Wang was a little confused by his comments. Didn't he only have a daughter? When did he gain a grandson? Could it be? He was even more puzzled and asked, when did you get to have a grandson? Why didn't I know? Tingy recalled Ayn Rand's words in the word and looked at Old Wang. I haven't asked her yet. Are you all right with my daughter? She got pregnant recently, and the child is a rich second-generation heir. Old Wang was shocked. Jackson was pregnant. He calculated the days and thought that the baby might be his. He was furious. He was almost 60 years old and didn't have a son. Now that he finally did have one, he was killed. He couldn't let it go. Old Wang picked up the bottle of wine and drank it in one gulp. What do I have to do with your daughter? Don't worry, leave it to me. His eyes turned fierce as he expected the bottle of sulfuric acid. Ayn Rand, go to hell. As Old Wang spoke, he packed up the rest of the food and sauntered out of the restaurant. Skinny saw the two of them have left and also left. Meanwhile, old Mrs. Mo had been in the hospital for some time. Her illness was mostly cured because she saw that her grandson was still alive. Old Mrs. Mo, the doctor said that you can be discharged from the hospital in a few days and we can go home soon. Nanny Wu walked over with some soup and rice. Nanny Wu, has there been any news of Shang Li recently? Nanny Wu shook her head. Ever since he disappeared from the airport, it was as though he had disappeared from the face of the earth. There's been no news of him. Shang Li has all seemed to be disappeared. There hasn't been any news of him recently. Oh, Mrs. Mo, don't worry. It's his blessing whether it's good or bad. He does deserve to be punished for what he did. Oh, Mrs. Mo sighed. I can't believe why he treated Yinger like that. I remember that he treated Yinger the best when she was young. Perhaps Yinger didn't expect that she would die in the hands of her uncle. If she could only live to this day, she probably would like Jinrong getting married and having children. She didn't have a good life, just like me. Old Mrs. Mo looked at the rain outside emotionally. Old Mrs. Mo, don't say that. It's been so many years. Missy should have reincarnated a long time ago. I hope she can find a good family. Nanny Wu smiled. However, Jinrong heard everything. He walked in and looked at old Mrs. Mo in shock. Grandma, are you serious? He killed Yinger? How is that possible? Didn't she die of a heart attack? Jinrong couldn't accept it. All these years, he had blamed Yinger's death on him, and he'd been worried about her for more than 10 years. In the end, it was a misunderstanding. Jinrong, you here? Hurry and sit. Let me tell you very slowly. Shang Li told me himself that he admitted that Yinger's death is related to him. Back then, he deliberately changed the medicine in the bottle so that even if you were present, you wouldn't have a chance to save her. It's been so many years and you've been suffering from mental illness because of this. Back then I thought Yinger had a heart attack and passed away. Now that I think about it, Shengli didn't shed a single tear. After old Mrs. Mo finished speaking, Jinrong was stunned. Grandma, how could this be? Why did he kill Yinger? Why? He couldn't understand how Shengli could bear to kill his innocent and cute sister, who was still a child at the time. I heard from him that he wanted to kill you, but Yinger found out his plan. He must have killed her because he was afraid that his plan would be exposed. When Mrs. Mo explained the situation slowly, Jinrong felt his heartache. Over the years, he had forced the burden of the mistake on himself. He always thought that it was his fault, but he didn't expect there to be another murderer. I'm going to find her. I'm going to avenge her. Jinrong was a little agitated. Old Mrs. Mo hurriedly stopped him, afraid that something would happen to him. Jinrong, don't be rash. It's been so many years now, and you have to get over it. He is now a wanted criminal. Grandma has lost her last son. You are the only one left. I can't let anything happen to you again. Old Mrs. Mo started to cry. She felt like a failure. She could have children, but she only had one grandson left, Jinrong. Grandma, don't worry, I'll catch him. Jinrong grabbed her hand tightly and promised solemnly. This time it was for his sister and for him, who had taken the blame for Shengli for so many years. Jinrong, you have to be careful. He's extremely vicious. Grandma only has one grandson, you. You are the only hope of the Mo family. Old Mrs. Mo reminded him again. Chapter 530. Hold back a trick. Grandma, I'm alright. You have to be careful. Mo Shengli is here to take revenge. Jinrong wasn't afraid of anything, but he was afraid that his grandma would be hurt. He held old Mrs. Mo's hand tightly. At the Tan family, in order to control old Master Tan, Shengli stayed beside his room. Old Master, I'm watching you, Shengli said to him. Let me call my son. I want to see how my grandson is doing. Old Master Tan hadn't received any news about his grandson, and he was anxious. Shengli used his phone to call Tan Shilin. Tan Shilin was in the company, thinking about how to deal with Jinrong and Anran. When he saw Shengli's call, he didn't want to pick up, but he was still worried about his father. Shilin, it's me, your father. What happened to my grandson? It's been so long and there hasn't been any news. I'm worried to death. When Tan Shilin heard his father's words, he couldn't help tell him that his grandson was gone, so he could only reply vaguely, Dad, don't worry, the baby is safe. Give the phone to Shengli, I want to talk to him. Old Master Tan was relieved. Boss Tan, how is it going? Shengli sat beside Old Master Tan and asked. Tan Shilin gritted his teeth in hatred towards his companion. This has something to do with him, and he needed him desperately now. He wouldn't let him go. He smiled into the phone. Boss Mo, what's the hurry? Didn't we agree to cooperate? Why did you change your mind so quickly? I've been thinking about it the past few days. It's not safe in the country, so I can help you when I'm abroad. You should help me find a way out of the country. Shengli smiled and looked at Old Master Tan. Abroad is far away and difficult to control after all. Boss Mo will just wait it out. Once Jinrong and Anran are dead, I will send you abroad immediately. We will only have a chance of winning if we cooperate, Tan Shilin said to him. Are you trying to use me? Shengli wasn't stupid. Although he wanted revenge, he didn't have to take such a big risk. Tan Shilin wanted to use him to kill people. Don't you want revenge? I can protect you. The Tan family is big and can only give you a place to shelter from the rain. If you're unwilling to cooperate, I can only put righteousness before family. At most, we'll perish together. Tan Shilin had reached a point of madness and was willing to fight to the death. How do you want me to help you? There was a seed of revenge hidden in Shengli's heart. Jinrong is about to start patrolling all the shores. As long as you shoot him wherever he's at, I will ensure your safety when you leave the country. Tan Shilin promised him. At this point, Shengli was willing to be used by others. I hope you'll keep your promise. After Shengli hung up, he picked up his gun and wiped it symbolically. Suddenly, his phone rang again. He glanced at the screen and picked it up hesitantly. Shengli, are you going to keep your promise? Shi Li's tone sounded hostile, and Shengli had to placate him. Boss Shi, I agreed to help you previously, but I can't even protect myself now. Aren't you going to let me off? He promised Shi that as long as the Jinrong accepted the entertainment field project, he would give Shi half of the shares. That was why Shi tried so hard to recruit Jinrong. He didn't expect something to happen to him before he could do anything. Let you go? Then who will let me go? Do you know that I made a promise with those old foxes because of this? They want to take my rights now, but this matter has failed. What do you think we should do? This time, Shi had run into trouble. He originally wanted to take revenge on him, but he didn't expect it to backfire. Boss Shi, I'm in trouble and can't even protect myself. How can I care about you? You should just protect yourself. Shang Li hung up after speaking. Shi couldn't get through again. He wasn't willing to accept his failure. If no one harmed him, no one could take advantage of him. There was no way he would let Shang Li push the blame solely to him. Ting Yong felt that his daughter had experienced so much, so he gave her a break and didn't have her interfere with the Mo family's matters. Ayn Rand didn't think Jinrong needed her help for the time being, so she agreed. After packing, she went to the herb garden in the countryside to pick herbs. The herb garden in the countryside had grass taller than her. She wore a straw hat and walked into her backyard. Suddenly, a familiar figure appeared in the field. Ayn Rand, is that you? Xu Shan stood in front of her house and asked anxiously, Master! Ayn Rand put down the hoe in her hand and smiled with relief. She wiped the sweat off her forehead and ran towards her master. Xu Shan felt that he was like in a dream. He hit himself and realized that it hurt. This wasn't a dream. Master! She hugged her master tightly and shouted. Xu Shan's heart ached. He hugged his disciple tightly. You heartless thing! Why are you dead one second and alive the other? You didn't tell me you were coming back. I thought you were dead for more than 2 months. You heartless thing! I raised you for nothing. Xu Shan's eyes were misty as he hugged his disciple tightly, afraid that she would run away in the next second. Master, I didn't bring you any alcohol this time, nor did I bring you any roast goose. You won't blame me, right? I was going to come look for you after the critical period was over. Ayn Rand explained to him, You heartless thing, it seems that I raised you for nothing. You're really tough. Master went to your funeral in secret and didn't dare to let anyone find out. I really thought you were dead. Master, I'm sorry for making you worried. Ayn Rand wiped Xu Shan's tears. You made me worried. When you weren't around, I almost raised son Hugh to become you. I see her around me every day, and I can always imagine her as you. I've been bewitched for the past few months. Master, are you helping me look after the herbs in the herb garden? Ayn Rand saw the grass was taller than a person, but it wasn't much medicine inside. You should know that I'm not good with pulling weeds, so I plucked some herbs for you in exchange for money to buy offerings. I even erected a monument for you, you heartless thing. Xu Shan started to cry again. Master, don't cry, aren't I alive and well? Ayn Rand wiped her tears and released her master. I don't care. I put a lot of effort for the past 2 days. You have to compensate me with alcohol and roast goose. I missed you so much that I've lost weight. Can't you tell? Xu Shan looked at his disciple seriously. Chapter 531, Conspiracy. He eyed Ayn Rand. There didn't seem to be any change or injury, so he was relieved. Ever since you married into the Mo family, I haven't seen anything good about you. It's not as safe as learning how to pick herbs from your master. Xu Shan felt bad for his disciple. Master, don't worry. I'll be all right, Ayn Rand smiled and said. Just then, her phone rang. She looked at the phone screen and suddenly smiled. Uncle, why are you looking for me today? Ayn Rand smiled. She turned on the speakerphone so they could both hear. Tingy cleared his throat and said, Ayn Rand, I have something to ask you. Can you come out now? Why can't we talk over the phone? Wasn't what I said last time clear enough? Ayn Rand spoke deliberately. Ayn Rand, I don't understand what you mean, so I wanted to ask you in person. I thought that you were a kind child and wouldn't treat us like this without some other reason. Yaksen is very upset now, both psychologically and mentally. I hope you can come forward and explain things for us. After all, it was a life, and Yaksen can't let go of it. As her father, I have to do something for her. You should come out and meet me at the cafe beside your house. Tingy didn't give her a chance to refuse. Are you really going? Your relatives are all vampires and none of them are good people. They must have hurt you badly many times. I don't think you should go. They might be up to no good again. Shui Shan was a little worried. He had long heard that no one in that family was good. If it weren't for them, Anran wouldn't have ended up in such a miserable state. I'm alright. The chance to catch them is all here. If I hadn't called you in 2 hours, you must call the police. Anran, don't take the risk. It's too dangerous. Shui Shan stopped her. Master, don't worry. I'm going to catch them in all one fell swoop. You can't fool a wolf with that child. Anran would use herself as bait this time, determined to trap them in jail. She changed her clothes, got into the car, touched up her makeup, and walked towards the cafe. Tingy and Old Wang were preparing to disfigure that girl today. Old Wang's hand trembled as he clenched the sulfuric acid bottle tightly. This is the first time he had done such a thing, and he was a little nervous. Old Wang, don't be nervous, just follow the plan later. Tingy encouraged him. How can I not be nervous? Will you really give me so much money? Don't lie to me, otherwise you'll have one splash of sulfuric acid. Don't worry, didn't I show you my bank card? Tingy grabbed his trembling hands and said, No buts, she's here. You can break it open at an appropriate time. Tingy reminded him softly and stepped forward with a smile. Anran, I'm here. Anran looked at the cafe. There weren't many people, and his seat was right by the window, very close to the door. Uncle, if you have something to say it. I'm busy. Anran sat down impatiently. She carried her bag with her at all times, afraid that something would happen. She even had a protective shield over her chest underneath her clothes when she came. Anran, I don't know what grudges you have with us, but I'm here today to ask you some questions. Ever since you came back, the house hasn't been peaceful. Ting Young has always been filial. Ever since you came back, he even personally sent Mom to prison. That doesn't seem like something a filial son should do. I hope you can give me a satisfactory answer. The things you said last time didn't seem to have happened. Don't lie to me. I'm not a 3-year-old child. Now Yaxin is crying under the blanket every night. We are your relatives after all. Even if we can't benefit from us, you can't harm us. Tingy spoke as though he was the victim. Uncle, I have made it clear last time you have nothing to say. You had committed many sins in your past life, and you're here to pay me back in this life. Perhaps you think I'm crazy and speaking nonsense, but that's the truth. You and that woman in the hospital's bed caused our family to be ruined. You embezzled my father's hospital. She pushed me off a cliff. I will never forgive you. Anran gritted her teeth as she spoke, hating him to the core. Tingy still didn't know what she was saying. He waved for Old Wang to hurry up, but Old Wang seemed to have frozen and didn't move at all. He thought that Old Wang didn't see him, so he secretly waved his hand down, but there was still no movement. He hurriedly found an excuse and said, Don't be agitated, let's have a meal first. He stood up deliberately and said, Waiter, order. There's no need to busy yourself. Tell me if you have anything to say, but if there's anything else, I'm leaving. Anran pretended to stand up when Old Wang rushed over. You killed my child. I'll make you pay with your life. He opened the bottle cap and splashed it to whoever was in front of him, then swung it wildly. Fortunately, there weren't many people in the restaurant, so many people avoided it. Anran reacted quickly and directly used her bag to block the sulfuric acid. But her hand was splashed with some of it, and it was painful to the bones. She glanced at her branded bag. There was a big hole corroded in the leather and a visible wound on her hand from the acid. The blood on her hand dropped down to her leg. She immediately realized that it was sulfuric acid. Are you crazy? This is sulfuric acid. Do you want to kill someone? Anran realized that this was what Tingy schemed. I'm killing you. You killed my child. Old Wang shouted the loudest and rushed to the front. Tingy hid behind and looked at her triumphantly. Your child? You finally admitted it. Anran smiled. Then Tingy's expression changed. What did you say? That was your child? He thought he had found a rich son-in-law, but didn't expect it to be an old man's instead. Old Wang didn't speak. He was still trembling. You have to thank me. I helped you solve an unsolved case. If Tan Xilin finds out about this, do you think that the two of you will still be alive? If you dare to tell him, I'll rip your mouth apart. Tingy's gentle expression changed to a hateful one. This was his real appearance. Uncle, why are you treating me like this? Did you bring everyone here to spectate? I'm your biological niece. Why are you treating me like this? Anne covered her bloody hands. Even though she was in pain, she never shouted. What nonsense are you saying? When did I find someone to deal with you? He turned to leave in a hurry, but Ayn suddenly stopped him. Uncle, what are you doing? You were the one who asked me to come here. Why don't you admit it? What did I do to make you hate me so much that you splashed acid on me? She cried and shouted at the door. Everyone, come and take a look. This is my biological uncle. He wants to kill me. Everyone, help me and call the police. Everyone, don't believe it. She's a lunatic. Tingy stood at the door and tried to stop them. He glanced at old Wang, hating him for not being more punctual. Look at my bag. Look at my hand. These are all traces of sulfuric acid. Is it fake? Old Wang, you know my uncle. So you must have been instigated by him to do this, right? Did he promise you some money? You have to spend it at least 10 years in jail for intentional injury. You're almost 60 this year, right? When you come out again, you should be 70 or 80 years old. No matter how much he gives you, will you still be able to spend it alive? You might even die in prison. Wouldn't that money benefit him? Anne cried. Old Wang thought about it and agreed. He probably wouldn't be able to get the money, but now this is all for his unborn son. What do you know? You killed my son. I'm going to avenge him. Old Wang was still in shock. Anne smiled carelessly. Do you think that son is really yours? You still don't know, right? Tan Shilin is Yaxin's boyfriend. Who knows who the child's father was? Old Wang turned to look at Tingy. He suddenly remembered why he was in a hurry to find the child's father. It turned out there had already been another person. He realized that he had been tricked. Tingy, how dare you lie to me? I'm going to kill you. Old Wang started a fight with Tingy. How could you be instigated by her? Tingy fought back and explained to Old Wang. But Old Wang didn't listen to his explanations at all. He picked up the chair beside him and was about to smash it. Oh my god, you're serious? Tingy casually picked up a fork from the leftover cake on the table and stabbed it at Old Wang. With a scream, Old Wang fell to the ground. He held his stomach, the blood seeping from his clothes slowly increasing. Tingy was a little confused. Things shouldn't have developed like this. When everyone saw that Old Wang lying motionlessly on the ground, they thought that he was dead and instantly scattered. Anran looked at the situation with satisfaction. Uncle, did you kill someone? Tingy slumped to the ground. He didn't want to do this. I didn't kill him. It wasn't me. He repeated the sentence over and over again, reminding himself that he didn't kill anyone. Anran quietly walked to Old Wang's side, stretched out her hand to check his breathing. As expected, he wasn't breathing. She hurriedly called the police and the ambulance. Old Wang was carried into the ambulance and taken to the hospital. In the hospital, when Jinrong heard about Anran's incident, he hurried over from the company. Anran had just finished being bandaged and come out of the hospital's emergency room. Doctor, how's my wife's injury? Jinrong hurriedly pulled a doctor and asked. Her wound is bandaged, but it might leave a big scar in the future. It's a pity for such a beautiful person. The doctor spoke regretfully. I'm alright, don't worry about me. Anran smiled and said, How can you smile at a time like this? Don't you know how dangerous it is for something like this to happen? You actually use yourself as bait. Even if you want revenge, you can't disregard your life. It was so dangerous today. If it had splashed somewhere else, it could have killed you. Jinrong was furious and reprimanded her. Don't be angry, I understand. Isn't Tingy being taken to the police station now? The moment she finished speaking, several police officers walked over. Because it was a criminal case, they needed her to go back and make a statement. Anran, I'll go with you. Jinrong was a little worried. Anran smiled. At the police station, Tingy kept emphasizing that he didn't kill anyone. His eyes were unfocused and he was a little agitated. But then the reality is that Old Wang is dead. Tell us the details. The police took Tingy to the interrogation room and he wore handcuffs. It was Anran. She tricked me. It's all her fault. Tingy trembled and stammered. What's her relationship with you? The police questioned. She's my niece. No, she's the devil. She is the devil. Tingy burst into laughter. The police saw that he was a little unstable, so they wanted him to rest and calm down before they continued with the interrogation. When Tingy was taken out of the interrogation room, Anwen happened to arrive at the Public Security Bureau, and the two of them met, and Tingy was extremely agitated. You're hurting me again. Uncle, if you didn't harm me, why would I harm you? Besides, this was brought upon yourself. Anwen cried. Tingy was taken out of the interrogation room to the lounge. What's your relationship with Lang? Tingy, tell us everything that happened today. The police officer sat in front of Anwen. He is my uncle, and he found old Wang to splash sulfuric acid on me, which led to the scar on my hand. You'll definitely ask me why and what evidence I have. Everyone present is the evidence. They saw old Wang splash me, and there's our surveillance cameras in the store you can check. As for why, it's a long story. Anwen told the police the entire story. The interrogation ended up being 2 hours, and the police were amazed by Anwen's story. They had never seen such a biased old lady or such a malicious family. Zhenrong waited anxiously outside for more than 2 hours. What did you say to them? You took so long. It's nothing. I just talked about the cause and effect. I didn't believe that he would come out this time. Anwen is clearly determined to kill him. Now that there's only that woman left, it's time for her to pay. Anwen's smile was sinister and scary. Anwen, revenge is revenge, but we can't let anyone die. Today's incident was too dangerous. What if he didn't miss his target? What would I do then? Zhenrong was frightened. Chapter 533, Beg for Mercy. Got it. Anwen smiled and said. At this moment, Liu and Taeyong hurried to the police station from the hospital. Anwen, are you alright? Liu grabbed Anwen's hand and asked nervously. Ah, it hurts. Anwen's hand was bleeding from Liu's grip. Taeyong looked down and saw that his daughter's hand was wrapped in so much gauze, yet there was still faint traces of blood. His heart ached. Your uncle did this? Anwen didn't reply. She just lowered her head. Ugh! He just came out and now he's hurting my daughter. Taeyong was going to get even with Tingy. Dad, I'm alright. It's just that there'll be a scar in the future. Luckily, my bones haven't been injured. I'll just cover it with cosmetics and I'll be alright. Yaksun had a miscarriage, so I don't think this matter is over. Anwen's expression was a little lonely. This has nothing to do with us. She came to find trouble and fell. Anwen, don't blame yourself. Taeyong comforted his daughter. Oh, why hasn't he changed? Liu hated Tingy to the core. She definitely wanted to make him go to jail. Made things clear with the police. He'll be arrested. Anwen spoke softly. This is what she wanted. Anwen smiled slightly. She would definitely let Tingy die in prison. At the hospital, Yaksun received a call from the police station and felt uneasy. Dad, I'm going to find Dad. She struggled to get out of bed and personally removed the IV needle from her hand. She couldn't care less, although the blood kept dripping from the wound in her hand. She struggled to the door, and Tan Shilin was shocked to see her like this. What are you doing? Shilin, I'm going to find my father. Anwen got him sent to the police station. Yaksun was agitated, and she kept begging Tan Shilin to take her to the police station. Yaksun, calm down. You just had an operation. I'll visit the police station. Don't worry. Tan Shilin carried Yaksun to the hospital bed, covered her with a blanket, and comforted her softly. Shilin, this time the police said that my father deliberately killed someone and injured her. You have to save him. Yaksun hugged Tan Shilin's waist and cried. Don't worry, have a good rest, and recuperate well before going to see your father. Tan Shilin caressed her head gently, making Yaksun feel safe. After leaving the hospital, he didn't take it to heart at all. Tingy didn't have anything to do with him. He comforted Yaksun because he thought that she could give him another child. Yaksun knew that Tan Shilin couldn't be relied on, so while no one was paying attention, she pulled the needle out again and ran out of the hospital. She was the only one who could save her father now. After Anwen returned home, Taeyong felt bad for his daughter. He thought that the matter would end like this, but he didn't expect his brother to be so ruthless. He did it to protect his daughter well, and it caused her to be harmed like this. And then I let you down again. I'm sorry. I'm such a horrible father. Taeyong sat on the sofa and smoked discontently. Mom, Dad, don't be sad. Uncle is like this today because of himself. Anne comforted him. Suddenly, the Land family's doorbell rang. The moment Lyra opened the door, she saw Yaxon standing weakly in her hospital gown. What are you doing here? Lyra was a little surprised to see Yaxon like this. I want to find Sis. Save my dad. He didn't mean it. I'm begging you. Yaxon laid on the ground weakly, pleading bitterly. She grabbed Ayn Rand's pants and cried softly. When Ayn Rand saw Yaxon's appearance, she didn't feel any sympathy at all. Yaxon, now you know how to look for me. The acid corroded my hand and almost my face. Your miscarriage has nothing to do with me. Uncle treated me like this, and you want me to forgive you? Ayn Rand smiled disdainfully. I'm begging you. My mom's in jail and my dad can't go back. He can't go to jail. He'll die. Save him. Yaxon cried. Yaxon, your father is too much. We can't forgive him. Don't come again. Our family will sever ties with you, and we will never see each other again. Ting Young closed the door heartlessly. Back then, they ridiculed him. Now they knew how to plead for mercy. No way. Yaxon was in despair again. Since pleading was useless, she could only return to the favor. Ting Young, just you wait. If our family isn't doing well, you won't either. Yaxon shouted towards the door. She swore in her heart that she would never let them off. In the house, Lyra was worried that Yaxon would hurt her in the moment of desperation, so she decided to look and lock Ayn Rand's room. It was the safest place. Mom, don't worry about me. What can a little girl like her do? Ayn Rand smiled and said. Taeyeon felt that his wife was right. Ever since she came back, this girl has been looking for trouble. She might really be driven to desperation. It was better to be safe. Oh, why is your life so miserable? You should listen to your parents and stay at home for a few days. Your life is the most important. Mom, have you forgotten my identity? I have a bodyguard. Ayn Rand comforted her. That sounds safer than being at home. If it doesn't work out, I won't go to the hospital anymore and will accompany you at home. Mom, Dad, I want you to accompany me to the police station again. I forgot something. Since Uncle hurt me so much, don't blame me for being merciless. At this point, she remembered something. She was simply letting Ting-yi off too easily. By letting him go to the police station, she had to eat fuel to the fire. Okay, go ahead. Your mom and I will go with you. Ting-young didn't have any feelings for his brother at all. He would rather let his brother be in prison for the rest of his life than let his daughter get hurt. They went to the police station and told them everything about Ting-yi hiring someone to kidnap her. At the Mo Corporation, Jinrong regained power and took over several lost markets. Many people were willing to come back to cooperate because of Jinrong. Young Master, it's great that you're back. The Mo Corporation will be back to the same as it was soon. That's all thanks to the young madam. Jinrong nodded. He admitted that he had married a good wife. But young Master, when did you find out about young madam's identity? Mo-san found it unbelievable when he thought about it. I knew it from earlier on. Do you believe in reincarnation? Jinrong looked at him intently. Mo-san was taken aback and looked at Jinrong in disbelief. Why would he ask such a question? Huh? Ghosts and gods? I don't believe it. Young Master, have you watched too many television dramas? Chapter 534. Mo Chang-wen is dead. Go and arrange for a patrol. You must send more people over. Jinrong waved his hand, a smile on his face. Okay, I understand, but young Master, there's one more thing. There's been news from the prison. Mo Chang-wen was executed yesterday, but his corpse hasn't been collected. Why don't we... Mo-san spoke slowly, afraid that Jinrong wouldn't accept it, so he didn't dare to say it too much. Tell Grandma and inform her that her son and cremated the corpse. Leave the ashes in the cemetery. The funeral won't be held. Jinrong sighed, revealing a sorrowful expression. This uncle of his had been fighting with him for more than 10 years. Now that he was suddenly gone, he felt desolate. Thinking about it, Chang-wen spent so much effort over the past decade and did so much, but in the end it was all for nothing. He wondered what Shang-li would think if he found out. All right, I'll inform old Mrs. Mo. Mo-san nodded and laughed. Jinrong casually flipped open the contract on the table and saw that the contract he had prepared for the Entertainment City project before the accident. Now that he looked at it, it was indeed full of loopholes. This must have been Shang Li's trap. He then threw the document into the trash can. The company's accounts had returned and were recovering in all aspects. Thinking about all the credit was Ayn Rand's, he took out his phone and wanted to call her. But it didn't go through, and he was a little worried. After all, so many things had happened, and he was extremely scared. After failing to get through 3 times, he picked up his clothes and was about to go to the Lan family when Chen Xiao walked in. When she saw Jinrong, she pounced on him excitedly. Jinrong, it's great that you're still alive. I saw news of you abroad and rushed over. Because Chen Xiao was discovered by her father, she was taken back. When she heard that Jinrong had gone for 2 months, she actually thought that he was really dead and had agreed to her father's marriage. When she heard that Jinrong was back, she hurriedly ran out. Jinrong pushed her aside and said, I'm alright. I'm going to see Anna now. We can talk when I'm back. He looked very anxious, so Chen Xiao hurriedly grabbed his arm. Don't worry, when I passed by the mall just now, I saw her shopping with her parents. She seemed to be in a good mood and wasn't in any danger. I didn't come to find you for anything else. I just wanted to see you. Are you doing well? As your old friend, or as your savior, shouldn't you have a chat with me? Chen Xiao walked into the office in her high heels and sat on the sofa. Compared to before, she seemed more mature, at least not as childish. Jinrong was relieved to hear this. What do you want to talk about? I promised that you would take a visit to the amusement park and after dinner. I can do it with you now, but I'll have to bring Anne Ren along. Chen Xiao smiled. She felt that her request in the past was too childish. What are you laughing at? Isn't that what you said to me in the past? If you're unwilling, I don't have a choice. During this period of time, I experienced a car accident and was almost disabled. My company was about to go bankrupt, but Ayn Rand was always by my side. I'm very lucky to have such a wife. It's all because of her that I can have today. I won't do anything to let her down. Jinrong spoke his thoughts first. Chen Xiao looked calm, as though this had nothing to do with her. Now that I look at you, I really think I'm childish. In the past, I always thought that Ayn Rand couldn't compare to you. I didn't know what you saw in her, and I thought that I was better than her in every aspect. She just has a beautiful appearance. Now that I think about it, if I were by your side when something like this happened, I probably wouldn't be able to do what she did. Now I know where her charms are and why you would be so worried about her. I admit that I can't compare to her, so I won't force you to be with me. You don't have to worry about that. She seemed to have matured a lot. Jinrong nodded with a smile. You changed. You seem to have become more mature in the past 2 months. Did you agree to your father's request to marry someone else? Chen Xiao's eyes lit up and a strange smile bloomed on her face. This so-called marriage is just a blind date. In terms of marriage, my father respects me. Last time, the African prince he chose was killed by someone because of an internal strife in the family. He also had a habit of drinking, prostitution, and gambling, so my father did not want me to marry him. After the incident, he let me choose my blind date partner. No matter how much I like you, it's impossible, but don't worry, I'm still very cautious in the aspect and will never let myself suffer. That's good. I can help you with anything besides giving you my body. As long as you need it, you are my savior and I will have to repay you. Chen Xiao stood up, took her bag, and spoke to Jinrong. There will be use for you, but don't be in such a hurry. Remember to be careful next time. I booked a flight for tonight. I'm going to catch my plane. Do you need a ride? Chen Xiao waved her hand and turned around. Anna will always be the only woman in your front passenger seat. She left after speaking. Jinrong looked at her back and smiled with relief. Meanwhile, old Mrs. Mo was lying on the hospital bed watching television in peace. Mo-san walked in at this moment. Old Mrs. Mo, young master asked me to tell you that Mo Chang-wen's corpse has been in the prison for a day and that the funeral won't be prepared. I have informed Xu Pei and Li Feng. They will bring their sons to visit him and his ashes will be buried in the Mo family cemetery. Do you want to take one last look of him? The corpse is being transported to the funeral parlor. Old Mrs. Mo was focused on the apple. When she heard this, the apple in her hand fell onto the bed. She looked at Mo-san in shock. Did he say anything before he died? Mo-san thought for a moment. Before he died, he said to the people in the prison that he would be filial to you in his next life and would never do such evil things again. He only hopes that you can forgive him and acknowledge him as your son. Tears fell from old Mrs. Mo's eyes. She stretched out a wrinkled hand, grabbed the corner of the blanket, and slowly laid down. She covered herself with the blanket and cried softly. She had sworn never to see her son again, but she couldn't accept the fact that her biological son had passed away. Chapter 535, Poor Old Mrs. Mo. After a long time, she came out of the blanket, her tears clearly visible on her wrinkled face. She spoke with reddened eyes and a trembling voice. Bury him in the cemetery and let the funeral parlor cremate him. I won't be going to see him. I know that I won't have the blessing of having both children and grandchildren in my life. It's my fault for not educating him well, causing him to suffer today. He has to pay for his sins. I swore back then that we would never see each other again, so there's no need for the funeral. You can do the rest yourself. Shu-pei and Li Fang gave both to 2 sons after all. It's sad that their sons have lost their father. Give them more money so that they can lead a good life for the rest of their lives. Old Mrs. Mo waved her hand, dismissing him. Mo-san closed the door, and after he left, Nanny Wu started to comfort old Mrs. Mo. Old Mrs. Mo, don't be sad. Young Master Cheng Wen is still filial. At least in the end, he knows his mistake, and he can only hope that he'll be a good person in his next life. Nanny Wu's eyes were red from crying. Old Mrs. Mo only cried silently. Back when her eldest son passed away, she was just as sad. But it had been so long. Now she could feel the heart-wrenching pain again. She started to blame the heavens not supporting her and causing her to lose both of her sons. She raised her head and asked Nanny Wu with a trembling voice, Nanny Wu, do you think I've lived too long and took my sons' lives? I took their lifespans. I should be the one who's dead. Old Mrs. Mo finally couldn't help but cry loudly. Old Mrs. Mo, don't talk nonsense. This is their lot in life. It has nothing to do with you. Although Nanny Wu was upset, she tried her best to comfort old Mrs. Mo. Then why are they all dead? I don't even have a son. Old Mrs. Mo cried and fainted. Nanny Wu hurriedly called for a doctor to save her. She was also lamenting the suffering of old Mrs. Mo. She was supposed to be at an age where her children and grandchildren were surrounding her, but in the end she was just a lonely old lady. Half an hour later, old Mrs. Mo finally regained her consciousness. Nanny Wu was frightened. Shenron rushed over when he received the news. Grandma, are you all right? He asked anxiously. Old Mrs. Mo is all right. She was just a little sad after hearing the news and fainted. She has regained consciousness and is still asleep. Shenron finally relaxed. It hasn't been easy for old Mrs. Mo. Why do you think the heavens took her sons away one by one? Nanny Wu sighed. Shenron was silent. Perhaps it was because of her family background that the heavens wanted her to lose something. Old Mrs. Mo was pushed out of the emergency room by the doctors and sent to the ward. Shenron looked at the various tubes attached to his grandma and felt his heart ache. Nanny Wu, don't let Grandma hear unhappy things again. Don't tell Anran about this either. She has suffered a lot. I don't want her to be troubled by this. If anything happens to Grandma, just call me. Shenron reminded her. The next day, Shenron was ready and brought a group of people to patrol the business. The news that he was going on patrol to businesses had spread throughout the business world. Young Master, we can leave now. The news has been sent out. According to the route we prescribed, the first place we'll go is the department store. In the period that you weren't around, the department store has been incurring losses and its turnover has reached the lowest in its history. Mo-san showed Shenron the business form. Shenron took it and glanced at it before speaking calmly. Tell Keecha to rush out 2 sets of clothes immediately and use embroidery on some bags. Ask Keecha to think of a way. When the time comes, use her name and place them in various luxury stores. Put 2 in each store. With that, he got into the car and walked towards the department store. Shang Li had received the news from the Tan family. He knew that Jin Rong was going to be patrolling the various businesses under the Mo Corporation today and wanted to find an easy place to start. His failure today was because of Jin Rong, his nemesis. Shang Li, you only have one chance. It depends on whether you can grasp it or not. If you fail again, I won't be able to help you. You should know that you're a wanted criminal now. If you're caught, this matter will not have anything to do with me. I'm just telling you this news. Tan Xilin wanted to clear his name, but Shang Li wasn't stupid. He knew that the person wanted him to do all the dirty work. But in this situation, he couldn't even protect himself, so he could only do so. Tan Xilin, what are you still thinking about? We're in the same boat. You have to follow me in the scene and protect me as I leave safely, or your father will die by my hands. Old Master Tan was old and couldn't move around. He would only drag him down. Tan Xilin was a good hostage instead. Shang Li pressed the gun to his forehead. Tan Xilin had enough of such coercion. He started to question whether his gun was real. Are you lying to me? Did you use a fake gun to threaten me for several days? Shang Li immediately put down his gun and disassembled it and placed the bullets on the table. You want me to put this into your brain so that you can believe that it's real? Tan Xilin was frightened when he saw the golden bullets. Let go of my dad, I'll go with you. Shang Li loaded the bullets back into the gun, carried his bag, and left with Tan Xilin. Son, be smart and come back alive. When Master Tan's heart ached, he only had one son and he prayed silently. After Shang Li left, he hurriedly picked up the phone and called the police. Shang Li looked at Jin Rong's route today. There were too many people in the department store, and the distance between the two exits were very large. It was inconvenient for him to commit murder here, but he still had a chance on the hotel route. Shang Li, you said before that I'm on the same side as you. You don't have to point a gun at me. It wouldn't be good if I went off accidentally. Don't worry, I have contacted the boat for you. No one will notice you sneaking out. Shang Li put down the gun silently. You better not play any tricks. After I'm done with Jin Rong, there's still Ayn Rand. I'm not going to let anyone off. Don't be greedy. I worked hard to help you once in such a dangerous place. It wouldn't be too late for you to come back and kill her in a few years. If you insist on taking the risk today, you'll die. Tan Xilin thought he was crazy. Assassinating Jin Rong today was meticulously planned out, and Ayn Rand wasn't included in the plan. If anything suddenly happened to her along the way, his life would be in danger and he'd be implicated. He had a way out himself.